Hello, I'm Regina McCann-Hess, President of Forge Wealth Management, and welcome to our Women in Wealth series. Today, I have another new friend with me, and can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Regina.
Of
So I'm
course.
Tanya Taylor. I am a CPA and I worked in corporate for about 24 years, actually a little over 24 years in investment, in banking and insurance. But alongside that, I have been teaching personal finance for right around 24 years as well. And that passion was born out of just wanting to pull myself out of poverty.
Mm.
So I came to America, I was 16 years old, I had $100, undocumented, no parent. And when I came here, I thought, okay, from what I heard in Jamaica, I came from Jamaica, like everyone seemed to live this wonderful life, but I came and everyone was living paycheck to paycheck. And I felt like that's not why I came here to make that sacrifice, leaving my family. And I just wanted to build wealth to also help them as well, because we were very poor in Jamaica. So I started learning personal finance. I started budgeting at 16. By the time I was 21, I learned about retirement. So I started my retirement plan. And after I learned, I started teaching people as well. So that's pretty much how I came about doing personal finance. And then as a CPA, my husband is also an enrolled agent, so we had a tax practice. So we also did sort of tax planning, tax strategies for people as well. So in transitioning from corporate, I thought this was the perfect thing to do, to just teach people how to build wealth so that their lives can be changed just as how mine was changed as well.
Wow. That is a lot you just unpacked there. Holy mackerel. Well, okay, well, you must be a very special person because at 16, I think I was, of course, as a 16-year-old, I thought I was worldly. Not really, but I was streetwise because I grew up in the city. But there's no way I could go to a foreign country and figure it out on my own. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thank you.
goodness. Wow. And there's something about like growing up poor and growing up in those, kind of financial conditions. I grew up poor too, to light that fire
Yeah,
inside to make sure like, hey, like I didn't like living like that and I do not want to go back to it. And what can I do to make sure I don't go back there? Right?
that's
Right?
it. That's exactly it. Yep. Yes. That's it.
I think about it every day. It's that biggest
Yeah.
fear. Like, what if, I had to go back to living like that? Oh, so I mean, that is a great motivator. So you went to school, obviously, as you're a CPA, so you had to go
Yeah.
to school. CPA exam is not for the faint of heart. So holy Moses, you did a lot to better yourself just in that short period of time.
Yes. So, and I mean, you said it, so I don't even have to repeat it. The whole idea was I want to create a life for myself that's very different from the one I grew up in, but I also want to create a life that's different for my children as well.
Yeah.
And, I have an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 19-year-old. And I look at them now and I just think back. Sometimes I reflect back on my 16-year-old self and just think, oh my God, like they're older than I was. So it's a moment of reflection, but it's also just looking at the way that we've been able to raise them and the lifestyle that we've been able to give them, it really feels good to me that I was able to come here to do that and then to be able to give them a different life so they can set themselves up to build generational wealth as well for whether or not they decide to have children.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And as a mom, I know like my whole thing is I want them to do better than me. And what can I do to set them
Absolutely.
up for success? And, my husband and I both came much further than our parents, but you always want the next generation to do better and better and better, right?
Yes. And that's what
But
we've told them.
right, right. But they
They
have
feel
to
like they
do
have
it.
great expectations.
Right, but we can
But
set them up for it,
we
but
provided
they
the
are the
foundation.
ones.
Exactly.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
can we can give them the tools, we can give them the education and the resources, but they have to do it.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah.
fabulous, fabulous. So, okay, I just want to dive into so much, but I know we have limited time. So, let's talk about your how you're teaching people. Like you have a program. Tell me more about that because I think that's fascinating and very, very much needed.
Yeah, it's really well needed. And so I do have a program, and I usually say I bring someone in with whatever, wherever they are, because everyone is at a different level in their financial journey. So my goal is to meet that person exactly where they are. And so I usually start out teaching them basic stuff. Mindset for me is big because I feel like if you don't change your mindset around money, nothing else changes. So we start out with that, and then it's okay, how's your credit? A lot of people are managing debt. Debt is huge. So we work on debt and we work on a budget. Those were like the key things for me. I call them the wealth trifecta because if you don't have that foundation, you can't build. And then I also teach people to understand what's in your retirement account. A lot of people don't know, they don't understand what they're putting their money into, how they should be investing it. And I also teach them how to invest in the stock market. When I graduated from college, uh, way back when, I co-founded a stock market investment club with a couple of friends because we knew that our paycheck alone was not going to help us to build wealth. And so I ran that for 6 years, and we did a really successful job in running that. So I also teach people that it's okay. You can invest in the stock market. You can actually build wealth from investing in the stock market without taking crazy risk. And so that's something that I like to introduce them to so that they're comfortable. I share my story with them. I was able to build my retirement to over $1 million before 48. And a lot of it had to do with investing in the stock market, not just in my retirement account. So I tried to show them, how do you manage it so that you're able to do that? And then, of course, I teach them about tax planning strategies because we need that in order to keep some of the money in our pockets, and also other risk management strategies like insurance.
Yeah.
For example, for myself, I became disabled 3 years ago. Part of why I'm out of corporate America now. I had a car accident. So from that car accident, I haven't been able to work. I was not able to go back to the office. And had I not had a supplemental long-term disability plan that I purchased on my own, despite the fact that I had prepared so well financially for any risk that could come, just that simple thing, having that supplemental policy was a huge help for me in terms of just managing. So I try to impart all of that, the same generational wealth, having insurance policies. So if something happened to you, your child could be okay, your family could live the same lifestyle. So
Yeah.
all of that I cover in my program. It's a full coverage so that,
Yeah.
once someone's in the program, they leave, they have a really solid knowledge of what they need to be doing and some of the things that they should immediately put in place. And of course, also emergency fund. We talk about those things.
Absolutely. Like, no, you're hitting on all the really, really important items. And so many people overlook that insurance and they think, it's really not that important until something happens and then they're SOL.
Yeah. Yes.
Which thankfully you had that policy. And I can't tell you how many people don't have those types of policies and don't
Correct.
take the time to research it or invest in it for themselves. And then sometimes, pe- families with young children, their mistake is not only that, but also not having enough life insurance in case, you know, the breadwinners, like something happens to them and they die, and then the other spouse is left without enough money to raise the kids, and sometimes in pretty bad situations.
Correct.
So it is really, really important to have those conversations too. So thankfully, you're out there educating people on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really feel like there's not enough of that knowledge to go around. And so every time I find people doing that, they become an ally. It's sort of like, yes, there is so much knowledge that's needed. And I'm happy I am able to share that and to show them like I live this too. It's not just, hey, I'm telling you this. Like this
Yeah.
is my story as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like, if you're going to get coached on, a specific, field and niche or experience, it's a much better coaching if the coach themselves has done it, that, has done that job or has been successful in that role themselves versus somebody who has never sat in that seat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So what is the medium for your education course?
In terms of how it's presented?
Yeah. Hmm.
Or
How do
yeah, so
people like, is it like, do you do webinars, or do you do something in person over the phone? How do you do it?
So some of it is on demand and some of it is coaching. My first
Hmm.
step with any of my clients is that they come into my program. We have a one-on-one to assess where they are. You
Okay.
know, what do they need help with? And we create their own roadmap. And then
Okay.
based on that roadmap, they decide, okay, maybe I want to start on debt. Or I usually have them start on mindset. You'll hear me say that all the time because I feel like mindset is so critical. But once they're done with that whole mindset goal setting, then it's sort of like, okay, we start on debt. So they'll go in. I have an online portal where they go in and they do the debt course, but we're also having small group coaching as well, just to make sure that they're staying on track and that they're motivated, because sometimes you kind of, if you're going it alone, you sort of feel like, okay, this is not working, or you become a little bit discouraged. So we just sort of have that accountability, and we have the ongoing coaching as well. So one, they see that they're not alone, but two, it just continues to encourage them to keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. And it's also accountability,
Yes,
because we all know we do better if we have accountability rather than
absolutely.
we're left to our own devices.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just speaking from experience over here.
Same.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah, that is really, really cool that you're doing those classes. And I love the money mindset. You couldn't talk about that enough. I actually have a chapter in my book about money mindset and, how we're raised and how we're brought up and how it kind of follows us unless, of course, we make a decision like, hey, that doesn't work for me anymore. And how do I change that money mindset? And you can be so much more successful if you deal with that beast.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because whenever my clients come in and I would say we're starting with mindset, they'll tell me this afterwards. They're like, oh my God, like, why do we have to do this? I just want
I
to do.
know. I
But
know.
then once they've gone through that, they're like, oh my God, it completely changed my frame of mind, my thought of how I look at things. And so they get so much more out of it. But I just always find it so funny that they'll tell me, like, some of them will tell me like right after they're done, or some it will be like way later, like, oh my God, you need to keep doing that mindset work, because without that shift, nothing else is going
Yeah.
to motivate us. And
Right.
to keep going long term, because you're in the program, it's a 90-day program. After 90 days, you could stay in the community. But if you haven't made that shift to say, okay, this is my long-term goal, this is what I want to do, then you lose it after a while.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. Um, the mindset is really, really hard. And people don't like to work, like in myself, I don't want to do the hard work sometimes. And I also am one of those when it's like a topic like that, I'm like, oh God, do we really have to do this? But if you don't, it's so much harder to do the other work because you can be taught those tools. And unless you change your mindset, those tools may not work as well for you.
They won't. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Hmm. And I also like how you mentioned where you really start with the debt because you can't get much further on the other side of the balance sheet if you don't handle the debt and you don't handle the behaviors that are contributing to the debt, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
debt, the budget, and then credit usually takes a bit longer too, right? But I just feel like, again, if you shift the mindset, the debt will almost fall in line almost immediately, because, okay, what are my goals? How am I landing my spending with my goals? Then it's
Right.
also easy to create your budget, and then you could work on the credit in the meantime as well, so that you can
Yeah.
start investing.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, it's absolutely true.
Well,
So the credit card debt, it makes sense that you have to tackle that first because if you have somebody who comes to you with, say, $50,000 of credit card debt at 22% interest, you're never going to make that.
right.
On investing, you're always going to be behind and just paying those minimum payments. Oh my goodness, shake me now. You're never going to get out of that hole.
Yeah.
So that's a great conversation to have as well to set people up for success as, educating them about that credit card debt.
Absolutely. Yes.
Ah, we could
You
talk
got
for
it.
hours. That is such good. You're doing such good work. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us anything else that you think's important about your background. Obviously, having a CPA background is very, very impressive. So you know where you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's with the financial stuff.
Absolutely. And I think my background in the banking and insurance industry, the way I'm able to augment some of that knowledge has been really helpful, I say, for my client, even though we're dealing with corporations, but there's a lot of things that pop up. I worked at the Federal Reserve. That's where I was for the past 8.5 years. So, like even though it was like not personal finance, but there are so many things that you pick up along the way that just helps when I'm, addressing my clients, or helping them with something that pops up. And then a lot of times people think because you work at the Federal Reserve, you know everything that's going on, which is not always the case.
Yeah.
But I do feel like having that banking and insurance background has really helped me to help my clients as well. And I recently did a TED Talk, which it's actually live now, but it's really also talking about dreams to disability. And I share my story about how I became disabled, and just some of the things that people should do have in place because 1 in 4 Americans under the age 20 and above will become disabled before 65. And, as I was learning all of these statistics, I was thinking, I didn't even know some of this. I just
Yeah.
always a big advocate of get your life insurance, get your disability insurance. Long-term care is like for another whole other discussion, but just make sure that you have those things covered. And, as I was doing the TED Talk and looking at like bankruptcy, 44%, and the statistics is higher in depending on the statistics you're looking at, but 44% of people who file for bankruptcy, that's due to medical issues, loss of income from medical issues. And
Very true.
so that TED Talk, I felt like I needed to put it out there so that people can see that even if you have a good financial foundation, which I felt pretty solid that I did, that it could really just start becoming dismantled if you don't have certain things in place.
Oh,
Um,
so true.
so yeah, so I really feel like it's one of those pieces that I just want people to watch and just say, "Hey, I need to do this because it's that important." It could be the difference between retiring and falling into bankruptcy,
Yeah,
losing
no.
everything that I have.
Absolutely.
Um,
And we have a saying in our house, I mean, it's a sad saying, you are one major medical event away from bankruptcy because of how health insurance doesn't really cover everything.
Correct.
Oh,
Yes. And it's a rude awakening. You
yeah, it
become
is.
disabled suddenly everything you're just like wow
Yeah.
this is and things just happen like one thing will happen and then five other things happen at the same time and you're just like how do I navigate this so all that is really critical as part of building up our financial foundation.
For sure, for sure. So if people want to learn about you, your practice, what you're doing, and where to find this TED Talk that you're you know, online with, please, where do we find this?
So my website is growyourwealth10x.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. It's Tanya Taylor, CPA, MBA, because I know there's like a lot of Tanya Taylors, but generally, if you search that, you'll find me. And I'm also on Instagram at growyourwealth10x.com. And the TEDx talk is called Dreams to Disability. And why did my brain just, I just had a brain fog? How to protect yourself from life unexpected. And
Wow.
that's actually out now on the TED
All
stage.
right.
And I do
Cool.
actually also have two books. One of them that I wrote is
Right
one of
there.
them I wrote about I'm just gonna grab it here. Um, this one, which is called Limitations to Limitless, I ended up writing it after I wrote this one, Broke to Wealth. So Broke to Wealth is really providing strategies on how to build your finances. Like, it's for college students and it could be someone in their 60s. And the testimonials I've received on Amazon are from college students, range from college student all the way to someone in their 60s saying it's broken down well. I've been able to really learn a lot from it. But as I was writing this book, I realized that there are so many nuances to the disability and the whole, how does it work, what you're supposed to do. And so I ended up writing this one, which actually just got published recently, which walks people through what happens if you become disabled. It actually takes a step back, though, on what should you do before you become disabled? And then what happens if you become disabled? How do you navigate the whole insurance world? Because it's a whole different ball game out there. And I felt like it was also very necessary to share from a layman's perspective. I'm not an attorney, just I've experienced this. This is what I've gone through, and this is what can help you to prepare if you do become disabled.
Yeah, personal experience goes a long way. For
Absolutely.
sure. Well, I'm so glad you're sharing that with everyone and, trying to help other people. Hopefully, if they need that type of help, that's available to them. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. Yes, absolutely. I just feel like I need to get the word out.
Yeah, I agreed, agreed. So I know you've had a lot of years of experience, and I'm sure you've had a couple of experiences where it's been challenging being a professional woman. What have your any experiences there? Any of the like the biggest challenges as a professional woman that you've experienced?
I would say, like, for right now, just going into the personal finance space, like as a business, one of the challenges, or a couple of the challenges that I've noticed, is a lot of people now, because of the influencer lifestyle, everything is sort of like you get rich quick, you can deduct everything from your taxes, you can trade and make $1 million in a day. And I feel like that education piece it's tough sometimes, because if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I started a business, so now I can deduct everything." And we're like, no, you can't do that.
Oh,
And here are the reasons why. But even that kind of education I found to be very challenging, or saying to someone, no, you can't really repair your credit in 24 hours unless it's this specific situation. And trading, most people lose money instead of make money in trading. So having a prescriptive approach and going that way, it's becoming more challenging to say that to people, because everything is about get rich quick, deduct everything on taxes. And I saw all these influencers doing it and they're making a lot of money. And that's not really how it works.
no, it's not
So I
realistic. Yeah.
so I find
But
that
people
those are
don't
some
care about the
um,
fact that it's true or false. They just say,
no.
well, on TikTok, they did
Yes,
this.
yes. Yes. So
Um,
that's a world I'm trying to navigate, and it's across all age group. It's not like it's the younger people that's saying it to me. It's people of all
yeah.
ages, especially people who are far behind the saving for retirement, who are now saying, well, maybe I could go do trading. I could make a lot of money and I
Oh
could
my
retire.
gosh.
And it's
Oh
sort
my
of like,
gosh.
maybe you could lose a
Not
lot
gonna
of
work out.
money. So let's
Yeah.
pause. So yeah.
Good advice. Good advice. That is always a recipe for disaster. And with those situations, just like gambling, you only hear about their wins. You never hear about the losses that they have, which are
Yeah.
momentous.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So getting into your time machine, what is your vision of retirement?
So I'm very excited about retirement. I think I've saved well enough where I feel pretty comfortable that I could retire at a much earlier age than the typical retirement age. But I love what I do as a financial coach. So for me, retirement is not really a point in time. It's more having the ability to have flexibility. Do I want to work for the next 3 months, or do I want to take off? So I travel a lot. I've been to 61 countries so far, and the plan is to continue to travel and also to continue to educate people on personal finance. I feel like it's my personal mission in life to do that. And I think that the word retirement, for me, it's not just okay, get to 60 or get to 65 and that's it. It's more having the ability to do whatever I want when I want to do it. So if I want to continue to coach for 3 months out of the year or 6 months out of the year, I could do that. Or if I want to kick back in Bali for 6 months, I could do that as well. So that's my view of retirement and what my future will look like. And so
Oh,
my youngest daughter is going off to college next year. And so for me, this is like, okay, pre-retirement. I have my own flexibility because now I'm working for myself. So I could also just choose to work however I want.
I love it. That's so beautiful. I love how you just described it. It's beautiful. We could talk
Thank
all
you.
day. Oh my goodness. I love this. I love this. We're very like-minded. So it's good stuff. You know, I'm gonna love everything you say. But we do have to work. So I think we'll close it here, but I think we have an action item. And I think one of our action items should be working on your money mindset. You know, thinking back on, you know, how you grew up and what shaped your money mindset and what are the things that you may need to do to pass that hurdle and reshape your money mindset to move forward. So that's what our,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what
Yes.
we're going to
And
challenge people to do.
yeah, and the one other thing I want to say, it doesn't matter where you are now on your journey, where it might feel impossible. If you make that shift, you'll start seeing small things that you could start doing, and then it will become bigger things.
Yep, yep. You do small pieces and that way you don't get overwhelmed and you take those little, victories and you
Yeah,
get bigger and bigger and bigger victories. And we've all been there. That's the other thing. We've all been there. We've all been at the, turning point, or we've all been at the point where we're like, oh my gosh, the student loan debt or, whatever, these bills are overwhelming. And then you just have to break it down to bite-sized pieces and pick one or two things to work on. And that's all you do. And then you grow it out from there. Because otherwise, if you try to, go after everything all at once, you're just fighting an uphill battle and you're going to get frustrated and quit. So the smaller bite-sized pieces works a little bit better.
absolutely. You said it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Tanya, thank you so much for joining me. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
Same here. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
having me as well.
you are welcome. And thank you everyone for joining us and spending some time with us. Again, I'm Regina McCann-Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management. My website is forgewealth.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Insta, and YouTube at Forge Wealth, and on LinkedIn, Regina McCann-Hess. Go make it a great day.